It is that time, Macomb. It's 5 o'clock on the dot on a Thursday. We have only had a couple shows this semester due to some issues. I actually had an interview last week, so we didn't have this show. But if you don't know, it's C4 Sports coming at you live from Studio 326 here on Salee Hall. We like to think we are the best in sports talk here in Macomb. Call us cocky. But I think we got the shows to back it up. It's only two of us in the house, so we're C2 tonight. We're half down. Big shorthand tonight for us. Only myself. I am Matt Langman at LmanMatt on Twitter. That's at LmanMatt. Oh, excuse me, at LmanMatt93. I messed up my own handle. That's how rusty we are. Only having two shows this. Yeah. But yeah, follow either of us on Twitter. Tweet us any sports questions you have during the show, and we will answer them to the best of our ability.
That's right. You already know who I be. I am Darius Hawkins. Y'all can find me on Twitter and Instagram at _Hawk_13.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. We got college basketball to wrap up. We didn't get a chance to give our final thoughts last week due to us not having a show. And since there are only two of us in the studio, I think it's fair to say we can go ahead and give our listeners kind of our opinions on the college basketball season as a whole. I know I didn't watch too much of it, especially during the regular season. I watched barely any, but I watched a good amount of the tournament. It was pretty exciting this year. A lot of upsets early, but at the end of the day, it was all the teams we kind of thought that were going to be there, especially at the Final Four level. And it was an exciting Final Four with some good games. I was not very happy with the outcome since I don't like to focus on negative energy too much. Try not to be a hater, but one of the very few teams I will hate on is Duke. So I was a little sad to see them pick up that national championship over Wisconsin, who I was cheering for, not just out of hatred for Duke, but for Frank Kaminsky, a guy who's from the same hometown as me. Well, I guess technically he's from Lisle. I'm from Naperville, but he went to Bennett Academy in Naperville, same age as me. I actually would have played against him my freshman year of high school if I didn't tear my meniscus for Naperville North basketball. So just I was rooting for him too, so I was kind of upset with that. What are your thoughts, Darius, with this college basketball season?
Well, just like with you, I didn't watch too much of the actual regular season, but I definitely started tuning in a lot more seriously when the tournament started. As far as having Duke win, usually I don't like Duke, but it was fine this year just because I had them going to the championship game, so I was cool with that. My biggest thing was that I didn't want Kentucky to go undefeated, and so I was happy that Wisconsin was able to beat them because going into the game, I wasn't sure they were going to be able to pull that off. So I was happy that Kentucky was, they weren't able to be the first team, I believe, since Indiana in like 81 or something like that, who went undefeated.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, something like that. But and also I became a fan of Justice Winslow for Duke over time. I like the way how he plays, so I was happy to see somebody that actually was a good player.
Interesting about that, my brother, why he was cheering for Duke, he plays football at Dartmouth with Winslow's brother.
Oh, okay. Kind of fun, Look at that. Connections all around. C4 Sports, we deep out here. See, people might have forgot because we ain't been on in a while, but see, we got a lot of connections all over the place. But yeah, overall, I think it was a pretty good tournament. Hopefully, when next season starts, I'll get back into watching some more of the regular season. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, for me, just kind of going off the tournament in general, I thought the regular season, honestly, not that interesting at all, really. There wasn't too many storylines. I know there was a couple good UNC-Duke games, with Duke winning both of those. The tournament was a lot of fun to watch, some good upsets. But honestly, the tournament, for me personally, I know I've taken a lot of heat from my friends who are all March Madness freaks, and I am too. I used to be really into March Madness, but not so much anymore. And I'll tell you why. It's kind of the one-and-dones. I think it's made upsets less of a value. Like, there's more upsets now than there were even 10 years ago when you could still make the jump. And I just feel like it's given the mid-majors an advantage in a way because, they do have all the seniors, guys who've played together. So it just seems like there are more upsets now, and obviously when there's more of something, it makes it less interesting. And I just feel like all the upsets that are happening have kind of made March Madness lose a little bit of its luster. I think that there doesn't. This I guess is on the NBA. They got to either let you come out of high school or do college football, where you got to be in school for 2, maybe 3 years. I think is the thing. But for me personally, the best way I could sum up March Madness for me is it's still great. Other than probably the Stanley Cup playoffs, which are going on now, it's in my opinion the best sporting event. Other than that. And it's exciting. It was fun to watch, but still, I just feel like it's kind of lost some of its luster recently just because it feels like these kind of mid-major teams have, I don't want to say an unfair advantage, but at least more of a chance than they used to. Some people say that's good. It's good to watch that, and I respect that opinion. But for me personally, I think it's kind of made it less interesting in a way, too. And plus, you want to see the big-name players. You don't want deeper in the tournament. and they've kind of been going out recently early, which kind of makes it uninteresting. And honestly, too, to speak on it, not to just bash college basketball, but I used to be a huge college basketball fan. I used to be your stereotypical kind of guy that was like, oh, I love college basketball. That's how basketball should be, Forget the NBA. It's all one-on-one. But I'm the exact opposite now. I love the NBA. I think I'd much rather watch your average NBA game than your average college basketball game for sure. I've completely flip-flopped probably over the past 4 or 5 years with that. And really, I could bring it down to one reason: the shot clock. I think it's 32 or 34 seconds in college to 24 in the NBA.
It might be 30 seconds.
30 seconds. That's still too long. Yeah. That's too long. Yeah. In college, I think it should be, honestly, I would go with 24. But if you're I know a lot of traditionalists for college basketball will say, no, you can't do that. Then 26, no more than 26 seconds, and I'm dead serious. I don't care how old school you are. Anything more than 26 seconds is just brutal. And I will sum up, Gino Auriemma, the head coach for UConn's women's basketball, just came under heat for saying this. Same with Mark Cuban, then backed him up. The men's college basketball, I mean, obviously, Gino kind of went on to say, yeah, women's is even less exciting to watch, which was kind of funny. But just college basketball right now, I don't find it that entertaining to watch. I will not sit down and watch your average game of college basketball. I'll do that for the NBA. I'll do it for the NHL, the NFL, whatever. I will not do that anymore for college basketball. It's just not exciting to watch. It's not. I'll just watch the highlights on SportsCenter that night, or the college basketball show. It's just the shot clock is too long. And to sum up what Mark Cuban and Gino Auriemma both said, half the time it's 2, maybe 3 guys touching the ball, and the other players who are on the court, why are they even on the offensive end? They're just running back on defense then. It has completely taken out kind of the transition game from college basketball, to kind of quote these guys or at least paraphrase what they said. And I kind of agree. It's not fun to watch. I don't find college basketball, until March Madness comes around, entertaining to watch.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. That's probably why I didn't watch too much of the season. It's no real intrigue, and I don't like – I've said before, even when we used to talk about Western itself last year, I don't like the offenses that colleges run. They pass the ball around for the whole shot clock, like you say, which is too long, and then they end up taking a contested shot, which is not good in the first place, that you could have got earlier. And I'm a type of guy individually who likes players who stand out more so than the team. So when stars aren't really standing out because you're playing in a team system, it kind of lessens the fun for me. That's why in a tournament, when it's one and done, sometimes you see guys like, for example, R.J. Hunter from Georgia State, or even Sam Decker for Wisconsin, or you got Kaminsky. You got guys whose individual performances, they sometimes over-highlight or overmatch what the team is actually doing, because you need stars to show up when the tournament starts. And that's probably why I like the tournament so much more. Watching the season, it's hard to get a good read on guys. And then you got teams like Kentucky who have like 7 guys, I think, declared for the draft from their team this year. That's a lot of players. And all those guys didn't get equal amount of minutes. You don't know production style what they're going to do in the league. They weren't able to play, realistically with their own college team. You got a team that's so deep, it's hard to see how you're going to produce on a real life, level with grown men. So I definitely agree with you that college basketball overall is not a very interesting sport to watch.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's the entertainment business, and I don't find college basketball that entertaining. If you're going to watch basketball, if you want to be entertained, honestly, watch the NBA.
Exactly.
To kind of sum up the difference, this is how it's always been for me too. You see, the guy had a huge game last night. He had 17 points on 10 or 8 shots, like in college basketball. NBA, that's nothing.
Exactly.
Look at Westbrook, LeBron, Curry. Yeah, they had 45 points. It's like you don't see that in college basketball. And people say it's selfish. It's not traditional basketball. I can kind of understand that. But you know what? I'd much rather watch, LeBron go for 45 dunking over everybody than, a nail biter that goes down to the wire and finishes like 45 to 43.
Exactly.
With both teams shooting like 26%.
For some reason, people think that low scores means good defense. That's not necessarily what that means. Low scores can just mean bad offense.
That's what both
sides.
Gino and Mark Cuban said in that article.
That's really what it is, and that's why players aren't really productive necessarily in the league. And that's why I agree with you 100%. It should go back to either you come out of high school or you do what you want to do in college. Like, it shouldn't be that you have to go to college for a year, because that's not really helping anybody out except the pockets of people that's higher up in college.
Yeah, I completely agree. You should be either allowed to go out at 18 or honestly make them go to school for 2-3 years, maybe even 3. I think that would be kind of interesting. I saw something about if you couldn't come out of college, you had to go for all 4 years. What Kentucky's starting lineup would be. It would be headlined by senior Anthony Davis. They had all these big-time players. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist would still be there, and they would have this amazing lineup. That would be so much fun to watch if you're going to make these kids stay in school for a couple years, or just let them come out. I'm telling you, if you think college basketball, what it is now, is if it's the same, I guess what I'm trying to say to get it out of my mouth, if you think college basketball is the same now as it was 10 years ago, back when they had you were able to come out of high school, I think you're just joking with
Yeah, it's
yourself.
not,
I really
it's
do.
not.
I kind of wish Ryan was here. He's our guy who's college basketball over the NBA. So
Yeah.
I do like to get the other side's opinion, and Ryan's not here with us today, at least right now. But yeah, I don't see how you could honestly enjoy your average game. You don't have maybe if it's your school, that's one thing. But if you're just gonna watch down and say we're gonna watch, for me, I really don't have a school I identify with, but like we're watching South Dakota State versus Clemson. I would much rather watch, and for NBA, I'm a Bulls and LeBron fan, so I'd much rather watch Golden State versus Memphis than some random college game.
South Dakota or whatever you said,
Yeah.
was Clemson. That doesn't even sound
Yeah.
any fun. I have no idea who's on either one of them teams. They definitely don't have anybody that's in this draft, so it really doesn't have any importance for me.
And I feel, too, if you're going to go back, I guess this conversation of college basketball season wrap-up has gone into the argument of NBA versus college basketball, and we don't have anybody to defend college basketball right now, but I think it kind of, I don't want to say hurts the players, but you could really, I think, damage a guy's career by forcing, like a Jahlil Okafor, somebody like that, an Anthony Davis, a clear one and done. Just let the guy go to the NBA, They say it's to help the guys, they need to develop at least for a year. What's 1 year going to do for one? If you're going to say that, make it college football, 2 years of school. Or two, it's their own mistake. Let them come out too early, like, who was it, Kwame Brown, just stuff like that. They're not ready for the college game. Sucks to suck, man, honestly, at the end of the day, sorry.
That's the GM's fault. If you take a high school guy, number one, who's not ready, then maybe you should have did a better job of scouting. People want protection to cover their own mistakes, which you are a professional in the scouting department. You should be able to know if this guy is going to be able to produce in your system or not. If you don't, then that's your own fault. And like you said, that's the player's fault for leaving too early when he thought he was ready.
Yeah. I can understand why they would do that, just like, help their families get the money or whatever instead of develop. But I don't know. I just see, like, what's the point of one and done? Like, really, what is the point? You're just kind of dragging it out for a year that doesn't need to be there. Everybody knows the guys are leaving. And honestly, I think a lot of these guys, too, I don't want to say they're not committed to the team or committed to winning or playing well, but at the same time, you got to think in their back of their head, they're like, this year really doesn't count. I'm not making any money. I don't want to get hurt. Something like that. That's got to be a factor for these guys as well.
Yeah, I definitely think it helps some guys, such as we mentioned Justice Winslow or a guy like D'Angelo Russell from Ohio State. Those guys, they got put on a bigger platform. But like you said, Jahlil Okafor, he probably was going to go number one if he could have came out of high school. There's a guy who's Ben Simmons. I think he's class of 2016 in high school. They're already talking about he could be number one in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Like if you just let these guys just come out of high school, more than likely people's going to take them number one. Emmanuel Mudiay, he would have been a top 5 draft pick if he did the whole SMU and then go overseas. He's probably still going to be top 5.
Yeah.
Like there's no point of making people wait out if they're going to let people get paid. Really, that's really what it is. Let the players get paid the millions of dollars, and if they don't play well, then that's on them and whoever drafted them.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I just don't see the point in a one and done, and at the end of the day, I'd much rather watch the NBA than college basketball. But
Absolutely.
I guess to kind of get back on track a little bit with the college basketball talk, since we are going to incorporate the NBA, who are you looking forward to in this upcoming draft?
Definitely D'Angelo Russell. That's a guy. I mean, left-handers, we know I'm left-handed. I love my left-hand guards. He also played for Ohio State, which at the time when I was a fan, that was a team I was a fan of, so I definitely looking forward to him. Justice Winslow, like I said, I became a fan of in the tournament. But the thing I see in him is a lot of what I saw in Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, and that's why I liked him at Kentucky. I like young guys who play defense because a lot of guys don't early on.
Yeah.
But I don't really see how offensively he's going to be able to fit into the league. So I feel like it's kind of a risk if you take him too high because I don't really know where his offensive game is at. But definitely my favorite player going into this draft is D'Angelo Russell.
Okay.
That's who I feel like, especially if the Knicks get the number one pick. I know people are saying get Okafor. Okafor's defense is not.
I think he's soft, too.
Yeah, I don't like his defense at all. When he plays size, like he's strong, but even when he played Frank Kaminsky, he was struggling. Just I guess against defense, he's not able to guard guys with good footwork. Kaminsky, by the way, has excellent footwork. And then Karl Anthony Towns, I haven't really seen enough for him to put him number one. So I would definitely take D'Angelo Russell if I personally was the team with the number one pick.
What about the guys from Kentucky that are coming out?
Towns, like I said, that's their best prospect. I don't really know about him. I know Willie Cauley-Stein is projected to go high too, and he's definitely a defensive body, but offensively, I don't see nothing from him. I know they have Trey Lyles. I haven't really seen a lot of him. And then they have the two twins who declared for the draft, but one is projected to be a late second rounder, and the other's projected to not even be drafted. So it kind of hurt them to come back to school for their second year because their stock both, got worse for both of them. But we know I don't really like either one of them. So, and Ryan, last time we were on the show, calling them both ugly, and I can agree with that.
Was funny.
So I don't care nothing about what ends up happening with the twins.
If you want to see that show, I believe they're all on YouTube. right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yes they are. Matter
Yeah.
of fact, they are on YouTube.
Trying to plug the show right
They
here.
are. I forgot what the YouTube link was. That's why I had this.
I guess YouTube
okay.
C4 Sports.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's nobody else like C4 Sports out here. All right.
Just look for the giant explosion.
Exactly.
You know, that's C4 Sports.
Yeah,
That's us right there on YouTube. So yeah, if you want to hear any of our past shows going back to last semester, it's been the same group of guys starting last semester. Just go ahead and YouTube us, and maybe if you're doing homework and you want to hear some quality sports talk, some opinionated sports talk for sure, but I think it's pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
Go ahead and give us a listen there on YouTube.
Absolutely.
We're all over that. And I think just kind of final thoughts then from college basketball. For me, it's kind of been all about Frank Kaminsky this season. I really don't identify with the team that much, and like I said, I didn't watch the regular season really at all, and I just kind of watched some of the tournament. This was the first year for me since probably 2004 that I have not filled out a bracket. And honestly, too, when I'm talking about college basketball kind of being boring, and I don't want to say dying, but definitely I think losing popularity, is I talked to a ton of my friends. For all my friends, I'd say 75% of my friends who I did brackets with last year in the giant pool didn't fill out a bracket this year.
The first time I did a bracket was 7th grade, so that was the year Illinois played UNC in that title game. And every year since then, I did a bracket until this year, and I just did one online like the day right before the game started, because I didn't watch enough to really make any educated picks. And like you said, the tournament is always going to be something that's entertaining, but the season I just really can't see myself getting into that unless there's a big storyline. Like you said, there really wasn't anything like worth watching. So I don't really know what college can do to improve the regular season schedule as far as TV. I mean, or maybe we're just at that stage where we're past it. Personally, I don't know. I don't know if it's us that change or if it's them. I don't know. I just know the tournament is fun. I'll always be a fan of the tournament, but the actual season, I'm not for it.
Yeah, I understand. So we're gonna go ahead and keep the theme here. We're gonna go ahead and move to the NBA, something me and you know much more about than college basketball. Just a quick look at the playoff schedules, which was finalized last night. The season is over now, at least the regular season. Time for the second season for the NBA. In the East, we have number 1 Atlanta versus number 8 Brooklyn, who just squeezed past Indiana last night to get in the playoff picture. Number 2, my boy LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Boston Celtics, who are 7. 3, my team that I identify with being a Chicago kid, the Bulls versus 6th Milwaukee. That should be a little interesting rivalry. Milwaukee only like an hour and a half north, really, of Chicago. Then number 4, Toronto versus 5, Washington. That should be very interesting. I know those two teams were kind of picked to finish 1-2 if the Cavaliers never got it going and Rose got hurt. Was Toronto and Washington, but I think they both have had kind of disappointing seasons.
Absolutely.
And in the West, we have number 1 Golden State, the talk of the season really, versus number 8 New Orleans, who snuck past Oklahoma City on the last day of the season, which I'm a little salty about just because I want to see Oklahoma City and just to reward Russell Westbrook, for his fantastic season. Then we have number 2 James Harden and the Houston Rockets versus number 7 the Dallas Mavericks. The 3 seed LA Clippers, a little surprised to see them at a 3 seed versus number 6 the San Antonio Spurs, who was my champion pick, and we'll see if I'm still going with them. We'll get to the predictions here in a little bit, but I'm a little surprised to see them at as far low as 6 as well. Then number 4 is the Portland Trailblazers. I know a team you like with Damian Lillard. Absolutely. And number 5 Memphis, who I think has slipped just a little bit here at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy that Portland-Memphis matchup because, like you said, I like Portland especially because of my boy Damian Lillard's on the team. And then if we remember, Memphis was a team basically the whole year that I was you basically, raising 2 fists for saying that they're the best team in the league, and now they're playing each other, and I'm not really too excited about that. But I definitely got to agree with you, though, as far as Toronto and Washington. Like I was telling my dad earlier today, and I was telling a few other people, I even think I put it on Twitter.
Yeah.
The Washington Wizards, along with the Charlotte Hornets, who didn't even make the playoffs, are definitely my 2 biggest disappointments for the season.
Okay.
The Wizards have too much talent, and for them to be a 5 seed is just horrible. I mean, you see Cleveland, they had a struggle period, and they got it together. The Bulls have struggled through injuries the whole year, and Atlanta came out of nowhere. The one constant, besides the Brad Beal injury early, it has been the Wizards. They have the roster. I just don't understand why everything's not coming together for them.
Yeah. For me, it's kind of interesting to see the Bulls still stick at 3 because when Derrick Rose went down with that meniscus tear, everybody kind of thought, oh, this is it. The Bulls are going to probably make the playoffs, but they're going to slip to a 7 or an 8. Probably have to play, like a Cleveland or Atlanta or something and go out early. But they really came together. I think last night kind of proved their season is they were down big to Atlanta. I saw that when we were at B-Dubs last night I was there for pretty much the Hawks game, but also I had my eye on the Bulls game during the commercials, as well as the U.S.-Mexico game, 2-0, all I got to say about that game. But I was watching the Bulls. They were down big, and I kind of looked, and the third quarter came along, and the Bulls just slowly came back, and they ended up beating Atlanta last night. And I saw after the game on the Sportsnet Central, which I was watching after the Hawks post-game, and they said that Derrick Rose did not play at all in the second half, and that's when the Bulls made a big comeback, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, I believe he didn't play due to like leg soreness or something. But he said there's nothing really to worry about, which I would agree with. It's probably not there because I did see that there's no minute restriction for him once the playoffs start.
Yeah.
So it's definitely exciting. You know, we're in the Illinois. I was gonna say Chicagoland area. No, we're not. That's where we're from.
Yeah,
we're from the Chicagoland area.
And in about 2.5 weeks, we'll be back. Chicagoland area.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's definitely good to see Derrick Rose back in the playoffs. The last time he actually played was during the
2012, I think.
Yeah, when he tore his ACL, I think in the actual playoffs. Yeah, so it's definitely nice to see him back. And I want to jump back over to the West. You talk about the Spurs being at 6. I feel like that matchup is actually the best matchup of the first round, Spurs and Clippers.
Yeah.
Just because if the Spurs actually won yesterday, they were going to be the 2 seed.
Okay.
The only reason they fell so far is because they lost, and then Houston and Memphis both won. So that just speaks to how tight the top 6 seeds of the West are. And so I definitely think the Spurs and the Clippers, I think actually they said had the 2 best records in the West since the All-Star break. Okay. I believe they're both like 18-7. Those Spurs might be 18-8 now or something like that. But besides yesterday, the Spurs hadn't lost all month really. Before last night. So I definitely think that's a good matchup, and I could possibly see the Spurs, getting back to the finals, which is amazing. I mean, the last time a 6 seed even won a championship was the Houston Rockets in '95, and that's when they repeated after winning in '94. So I mean, who knows? They might be able to do it again.
All right, so let's go ahead and go through. Let's hear who you got winning each playoff matchup here in the first round. This should be pretty We'll start in the East. This should be pretty straightforward. Atlanta versus Brooklyn. How many games?
Atlanta, I'll go Atlanta in 5.
All right, I'm going with Atlanta as well, obviously. I'm going to give Brooklyn just a little bit of credit. I'll go 6 for me. I don't think it's a very it's almost kind of like how the Heat and Pacers went 6 games in the conference finals last year. That was not a competitive 6-game series at all, so I'm going with that for Atlanta. How about next, Cleveland and Boston?
Cleveland, okay. Cleveland and Boston, Cleveland in 4. That's a sweep.
Yeah, I'm going to go, oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Damn, I think it's hard to sweep people in the playoffs, so I'm just going to go ahead and go basic. I would not be surprised necessarily if Cleveland swept Boston, but I think, maybe there's one game that Boston could probably kind of take, and I'll go Cleveland in 5. Next, we got the Chicago Bulls versus the Milwaukee Bucks.
I'm going to go with Chicago in 5, but I think it's going to be a tough contested series. I think most of the games will end up being close, but I'll go with Chicago in 5.
I'm gonna have to agree with you, Chicago. I think too it's a tough series. I'm going Chicago in 6 in this one over the Milwaukee Bucks, but it should be a good, very good series. Excuse me, I'm stumbling over my words a little bit. Yeah, I got Chicago in 6. I don't think who is it? Jabari Parker's not gonna return for this, right? He's out for the entire season. Yeah. All right, I think maybe if he was playing, it could be a little bit different, maybe a 7-game series even, but I got Chicago in 6 in this one. Then here's that matchup you were talking about, 4 Toronto versus 5 Washington.
I'm going to go with the Wizards in 6.
Really?
I mean, they may end up falling, but I feel like the Wizards, their side of the bracket, if we actually look at the way this is set up, it actually is kind of in their favor. I think the Wizards in 6, they're going to be able to pull it out.
Yeah, honestly, this probably is not a very entertaining show because we keep agreeing with each other. I'm going Wizards as well in 7 games over Toronto. I think it's a tough place to play there at the Air Canada Center. Some great fans, the Maple Leafs and Raptors both play there, and they love their sports up there in Toronto. So I think that some little home court can help the Raptors, but in the end, I think there's just too much talent for the Wizards, and that gets them past Toronto. That I think, honestly, the past couple of years has really been an overachieving team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shifting focus to the Western Conference, first round, obviously, we have 1 Golden State versus 8 New Orleans. It's basically Golden State versus, I'd say, Anthony Davis at this point.
I feel like Anthony Davis will be able to get 1 win out, so I'll say Golden State in 5.
Yeah, I agree. Golden State in 5, once again. 2 Houston versus 7 Dallas. A little Texas matchup right there.
Yeah, this is going to be tough because I don't know what Dallas team is going to show up. And Houston, to me, has been overachieving this whole year. Okay. It's amazing that they're a 2 seed. They don't have Patrick Beverly in this series. Dallas, they said they're a little, iffy with Chandler Parsons. He's been hurt as of recently. I don't know how much Dwight is going to play. I don't know what Terrence Jones is doing. So I was going to say Houston in 7.
I was thinking about that. I kind of agree with you. This is going to be a better series than people think, a better series than it looks like on paper. I think maybe even Dallas takes a 2-1 lead in the series at one point. I think they're going to hit Houston early and hit them real hard early, maybe with, like a little sucker punch if you want to call it that. And I think, honestly, they take a 2-1 series lead, but I'm going to have to go Houston in 6 games. They make a quick comeback, and there's just too much talent there. Harden, possible MVP. We'll talk about that, too, in a little bit, the MVP race. So if you want to hear about that, definitely stick around. But
yeah.
James Harden, Dwight Howard defensively. I know Josh Smith has started to play well finally for the Rockets, and they just have too much talent, and they played too well this season. I got Houston in a very competitive 6 games.
Okay.
The next matchup we have, the one you talked about, your favorite, 3 Los Angeles Clippers versus 6 San Antonio Spurs.
I'm going to go Spurs and 6.
Spurs
and I would not be surprised if it goes 5, but I just want to get I don't know, maybe the Clippers somehow squeeze an extra game out of there, but I'm going to go Spurs and 6.
Yeah, I've been riding the Spurs all season long. Well, really, the last 2 seasons I've been riding the Spurs bandwagon, even against my boy LeBron in the finals. I'm going Spurs again in 6 games over LA. And just to talk about the Clippers in general, not even the fact they're matched up with San Antonio, which is the team I love, especially come playoff time. Just the Clippers, they're just, I don't know, there's the team I talk about a lot in hockey being built for the playoffs or I don't know, built for the regular season, but this is the one case kind of in basketball. This is a 2K team, I guess is the basketball version of this. Fun to play with in 2K. They're always going to be a dominant team in 2K, but real life, that doesn't necessarily translate to wins. Like, this is a team, they've struggled in the playoffs before. We all know that. Chris Paul especially kind of has struggled in the playoffs. Him and Carmelo Anthony are kind of those 2 guys now, veteran superstar players that really have not had much playoff success at all. And that goes with the Clippers, too, in general. I just don't like to pick them when the playoffs come at all. And you add that to the fact that I love the Spurs. They've been my champion all season long. And I'm honestly just kind of, I guess, ruined the surprise at this point. I'm probably going to stick with them to win it all this year still, even though they're a 6 seed. Yeah. I got San Antonio in 6 games in this playoff matchup. And the final first-round matchup for us is 4 Portland versus 5 Memphis. This is a real tough one.
This is a tough one. I don't know who to go with here. I mean, shoot, Memphis has fallen off as of recently, but Portland has so many injuries, man. It's crazy. Nick Batum got hurt last week. LaMarcus has been in and out of the lineup. Aaron Aflalo has a shoulder strain. He's been out for like 2 weeks. Oh, this is going to hurt me. I'm going to say Memphis and 6.
You stole my thunder. We have not disagreed on one playoff matchup. I'm going Memphis in 7 games over Portland. Portland's another team, too. I like what I saw for them last year in the playoffs, but this regular season, I really think they took a step back. I kind of expected a little bit more from them. LaMarcus Aldridge really disappointed me. Damian Lillard, I don't want to say he disappointed me. He did show flashes of being a real elite player, but I just expected him to take a bigger step forward this season than he ended up taking during the regular season. And I liked Memphis all year. They were kind of right there 1-2 with Golden State for a long time since they've fallen off the last kind of third of the season. I think Memphis is a team that is built for the playoffs. What I've been telling everybody, even my roommates last night, we got into this argument. They really don't understand the difference. A lot of people don't between playoff basketball and regular season basketball, especially in the NBA. They're 2 completely different games. Playoff basketball, I don't want to say guys don't care during the regular season, but they care in the playoffs. We'll say that. The game slows down, becomes much more of a half-court game. The intensity is 10 times more, and I think, too, if you're looking at that Golden State-Memphis argument, I think Memphis is much better built for the playoffs than Golden State is, because these run-and-gun teams, they don't win in the playoffs. They just don't. It's a team that either has superstars, like, the Heat of the past couple years, or the Lakers or the Bulls, or it's a slow-down half-court team like the Spurs that we've seen, or Dallas in 2011. So those are the teams that win in the playoffs, and I see Memphis is just built for the playoffs right now. I know Marc Gasol is still balling. So I got Memphis in a very competitive 7-game series. That might be your best first-round matchup, I think.
Yeah.
So after that, we would have I don't have the tree in front of me. I just have the matchups. Who would we have in the East?
Atlanta versus Washington.
Okay, that's
if
what
we
I
go
thought.
with who we got so far. Yeah. So Atlanta versus Washington, who you got?
I'm going to have to go Atlanta in a very competitive 7-game series that goes down to the wire, just because I do not like what I've seen from I should go Washington. The talent and everything says Washington, but from what I've seen, these are 2 opposite teams. Atlanta completely overachieving, completely on fire. Washington just kind of limping into the playoffs. I'm going Atlanta in a buzzer beater Game 7. Atlanta wins.
Well, because I am partially an insane individual, I'm going to go with the Wizards in 7.
All right. So there
goes our disagreement time.
Right,
Wizards, come on. Eastern Conference Finals, Wizards, come on.
Then that leaves us with the Cavs and Bulls?
Yep.
Well, that's my least favorite playoff matchup of all time.
That's a good one.
Because that splits my heart. But I'm going to have to go Cleveland in 6 in that one. I think they've got it together. And I don't like what I don't think Derrick Rose is Derrick Rose. And even if he is Derrick Rose, we've seen in the past with LeBron in Miami, he shuts down Derrick Rose and he wins that matchup every time. I think, too, Kyrie has played amazing. Looks like Kevin Love's finally starting to fit in at least a little bit. The defense is not where it needs to be for Cleveland, but it's getting better. And I think, you got LeBron James, best player on the planet. This is playoff time. He's the veteran. He's won rings before. I think LeBron, he's proven he can win a playoff series by himself now. He's got some help from Kyrie. J.R. Smith, he's been playing great recently. I think Cleveland wins in 6 games.
I'll go Cleveland in 5. I want to pick the Bulls to win a series like that, but like you said, every time they're matched up against LeBron, Rose versus LeBron does not lose those series. So I got to go with Cleveland in 5.
It could be, once again, what we've seen where the Bulls win game 1 and all the Bulls fans, all my friends are like, yeah, we got them, game 1, big game 1. Then they get swept. They essentially get swept. So I don't think that's going to happen this time. I do like what I've seen from the Bulls. They've got a lot of talent. Maybe Derrick Rose could show some flashes, help them win a game, maybe 2. But in the end, I just like what I've seen from Cleveland, really. Ever since the All-Star break or even New Year's, I've really liked what I've seen. I think Kyrie Irving's really had an underrated season as well. He's been great, especially that Spurs game. That was incredible what he did. He showed some great flashes offensively. I think LeBron has also helped him defensively, too. He's not a great defender yet, but I think he's made improvements. So I like the Cavs a lot, especially in a weak Eastern Conference. And the Bulls are just banged up, too, and underachieved this year as well. So I'm going Cleveland to make it to the conference finals. That leaves us with Golden State versus Memphis, which is a big matchup. And you know what? I've said it all year. I'm going Memphis over Golden State in 6 games.
I agree with you 100%. Exactly, in 6 games. That's what I got. I got Memphis over Golden State. I keep telling people Golden State is going to hurt them the way that they play. They're actually a very undersized team. If you look at them, Bogut, you can't count on him to be healthy. But even if he is, he's the only big guy with size they really have because Draymond Green is starting. I feel like Gasol and Zebo are going to end up killing them inside. So I got to go and Mike Conley's not a bad defender. You got Mike Conley on Steph Curry, and you got Tony Allen on Klay Thompson. I feel like that's a great matchup for Memphis, so I'm going to go Memphis in 6.
Yeah, I agree. I've been having this argument with people all season long. Everybody's been, especially I go back to my roommates, they're kind of, I'd say, your average basketball fan. They really only see the Sports Center highlights. They don't see all the other stuff that goes into a game of basketball, the defensive side of stuff, working without the ball. These are also the guys who say LeBron James is overrated, by the way, and not a top 10 all-time player. So I just thought I'd let you know who we're dealing with right now.
Okay.
But a lot of people, and to just whether it's in the CAF or whoever, I've talked to some people about it. Everybody's distracted. Everybody's riding Golden State this year. They're distracted by the Steph Curry shooting, especially, and just they're a fun team to watch. Definitely a team that's easy to like. But like we said, I kind of said it earlier. You just said it now. Memphis is a team that's built for the playoffs. Golden State is not. The game slows down. Memphis is very good at slowing down the game, and I think they have the matchups with Golden State. They're really that one team that just matches up, like you said, like Mike Conley on Steph Curry, Tony Allen on Klay Thompson, and they're going to get killed by Zebo and Marcus Gasol in the post. They're David Lee, if he's healthy, and Andrew Bogut, if he's healthy, are going to get destroyed. I like the energy that Draymond Green brings for Golden State, but he's not big enough to bang with those guys in the post. He's not, despite how hard he tries, and I respect the guy a lot. But I think Memphis just really matches up with them well. They really do, and I got Memphis in 6 games going to the conference finals and ending this dream run for Golden State. And that leaves us with Houston
and Spurs.
And the Spurs. And I think, honestly, this is a good matchup, a lot of fun. But this is where the team basketball comes in for San Antonio. We saw him really make LeBron struggle. Oh, it didn't help last year in the finals. LeBron really got no help. But still, we've seen him make LeBron struggle from time to time in the finals the past 2 years. I think they do kind of the same thing to James Harden.
Absolutely.
I think he's going to get frustrated and really shoot his teams out of some games. And I'm a James Harden fan, so I like the guy saying this. Got to respect the beard. But I think San Antonio wins, and we'll go 6 games again. The talent from Houston gets him a game or 2, but just Pop, honestly, he's my finals MVP from last year's Greg Popovich, and just come playoff time, the guy's a magician.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Spurs in 5 for basically the reasons you said. I actually think Harden is going to be able to do better than he did last year. Last year when we saw him play Portland, he shot horrible in the playoffs. I think this year he's actually going to be able to put together some good playoff games, which would be the first time he's doing that as the number 1 option. But I feel like the Spurs overall, just as a team offensively, and just Houston, their problem right now is going to be, I think, the injuries. I think we're going to see that. That's why I said them barely getting past Dallas in 7 games.
Yeah.
I think the Spurs are going to be able to basically be able to take care of them with ease. So I'm going to say Spurs in 5.
All right, so now we got the conference finals. I think we have the same matchup in the West and a slightly different one in the East. You have Cleveland
Wizards
and Washington. So who do you have winning that one?
Oh, man, I really don't want the Cavs to get to the finals. But, I mean, hey, this is not really about what I want.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go with Cavs in 6.
Yeah, I got Atlanta and Cleveland, and I'm going to go the same. I'm going to go Cleveland in 5, actually. I really like the way the Cavs match up with Atlanta. I just don't think Atlanta has the talent to play with them. They can hang with pretty much anybody else in the East, but I think talent alone is going to run Atlanta out of the gym for Cleveland, and they don't have the playoff experience like a team like the Spurs do or even the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
So I think Cleveland wins this one pretty easily. I think LeBron has a heck of a series. He goes off a couple times. Kyrie has a great shooting series. He's going to have a huge game here or there as well. I think Cleveland in 5 for me. So, and with the Cavs, honestly, everybody's like, "Oh, you like LeBron? You know, you're just a homer rooting for LeBron." I don't want to pick him. Like every year, I don't want to pick LeBron because everybody's like, "Oh, you're biased. You're biased." I mean, you look at the matchups; it's hard to not pick
Exactly.
Cavaliers. Like you can't. I really didn't want to pick Cleveland, but you
can't really pick anybody else. And if you want to pick somebody, who are you going to pick? The Bulls, and then they're playing Cleveland, and we see how that matchup is going.
Yeah.
And nobody knows what Atlanta is at this point. I don't know what they are. That's why I had them losing in the second round. I think Cleveland just. LeBron, yes, he just by himself, he overpowers a lot of teams. But like you said, J.R. Smith's been playing great. Since they got Mozgov, they've been fine.
Yeah.
Kyrie has been balling. The only weak spot or questionable spot you could really say is Kevin Love, and that hasn't really hurt them so far.
Yeah, I know he had a huge game last night. He had a great shooting night last night.
Exactly. So, I mean, when LeBron or Kyrie really isn't out there, we see Kevin Love gets back to doing what he usually does. So, I feel like that is going. I said that Kevin Love or Kyrie is going to hurt them, but I think that's not going to hurt them in the actual East because the East is not strong enough to really affect them.
Yeah, so go ahead, call me a homer if you want to, just a bandwagon LeBron fan, but try and give me an argument about why Cleveland will not win the East. I dare you at that point. On the other side of the bracket, we have San Antonio, Memphis for the Western Conference. Who you got? That's an interesting matchup right there. That's real interesting.
Last time they were in the conference finals, I remember the Spurs swept them.
Yeah,
and I think that was 2 years ago. I really want to pick Memphis just because, like I said, I've been riding with them all year, but the Spurs are on fire right now, and it's hard to beat a team that clicks right before the playoffs start. That's one thing you want to do is click, and then on top of that, they have the experience.
Yeah.
They know what they got to do to get back. They've been rested. I don't really think anybody is tired. Tony Parker just started playing well at the right time, so you can't say he's exhausted. I got to go with Spurs in 5. I think it's going to be hard. I think that there'll be tough games. It might be maybe 1 or 2 blowouts in the series, but I got to go with Spurs in 5. So I got Spurs, Cavs, final.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of want to pick Memphis just to be a little different. Once again, I know a lot of people. A big reason why all my friends, they no longer hate LeBron. They're like, I just don't want him to make it. I want to see something new. You know, same with the Spurs. It's a little boring, honestly, to see him in there again. I want to pick Memphis. I can't. I got to go San Antonio in 6 games. A good 6 games. I think Memphis has more experience than the last time they faced the Spurs in the playoffs. Have a little bit more talent. They've really developed well as a team, but San Antonio, like you said, the hot team coming in the playoffs, you always got to roll with them, and this is the Spurs. Yeah. This is the Spurs we're talking about, people. Like, it's the playoff time. It's Greg Popovich, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, even Manu Ginobili, Kawhi Leonard. I cannot pick against San Antonio in the playoffs. I have Spurs in 6 games right here, so that sets up for both of us an NBA Finals matchup, a rematch of the past 3 in a sense. LeBron James versus the Spurs, the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Spurs. A rematch, I guess, therefore, of the 07 finals, but a much different look than 07. What do you got in this one? I think we're both going to have the same outcome.
Yeah, I definitely have the Spurs. The question is, how many games?
Yep, definitely.
I know they took care of the Heat in 5 last year, and it looked like it was fairly with ease, but I feel like LeBron has this is when I feel like Kevin Love and Kyrie is going to end up hurting them.
Okay.
I feel like just because they not only being in the playoffs, but being on the finals, that's a big stage. I got to go with 5 again. The Cavs have a lot of guys who either have not performed well or have not performed in the playoffs if you take LeBron off that team.
Yeah.
J.R. Smith's history with the Spurs when he used to play with the Nuggets is horrible when he was in the playoffs. Kyrie, Kevin Love, we know they haven't even been to this stage. So I think the games will be closer than last year. So we're not going to say, the Spurs ran away with the series. But I got to go with Spurs in 5. So Spurs being the champions again.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I'm not going to go 5. I'm going to go 6. I think LeBron pulls a game out of his butt once, and then the Cavs just play well as a team in another game. Yeah. But I got Spurs in 6 and pretty easily easy 6 games. Honestly, they're not stressed all that too much. And I kind of agree. I just don't think it's the Cavs' time. LeBron will win a ring with Cleveland. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen.
I feel like they're going to get better as time.
They honestly just need experience, maybe a couple more pieces if this Kevin Love thing isn't going to work out. But I'm pretty sure it's a matter of when, not if, LeBron wins at least maybe even just 1 ring with the Cavs. It's probably going to happen. I just don't really see it this year. I just don't think it's the time. They're not ready yet. LeBron's ready. Everybody else is not. And So I got to go with San Antonio in this one. And my roommates also have told me, I hope you know this, that LeBron will never win a ring in Cleveland. That's a foregone conclusion. And Dwayne Wade, right now, Dwayne Wade, that shot 1 of 14 in the finals, and Chris Bosh, who might not be able to play basketball, are both better than Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love as well.
Yeah, not at this point. No, they're not. But okay.
So I hope you know what I'm dealing with back home. Because I'm letting you know.
Yeah, you're dealing with a lot of pain, a lot of people being biased.
Yes.
I understand. It's okay. They just need to heal. They need some healing, some woosahs. They need to take some deep breathing inside and get over all that hate.
But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, that's what I got for you is San Antonio in 6 games, Finals MVP. If you got to choose it, who's it going to be? It's going to be from the Spurs, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, will it be Kawhi again? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I don't know. I kind of want to say Tony Parker, but I don't really know how that's going to go.
I'm going Tim Duncan for me personally. I still love Timmy.
Yeah,
I love Timmy a lot.
He might. I think
the matchups they would have too for him in the finals, in the playoffs in general, but in the finals, he'd be matched up with like a Mozgov or even Kevin Love. Kevin Love is a horrible defender.
Yeah, so
horrible,
you're right.
Especially post defender. I think Duncan just eats him up.
Yeah, I got to go with Tim Duncan too because he knows, and we still seen that he knows how to play well during the series. And games when he has to show out, he still is able to do that. Yeah. So I definitely. Well, I mean, even with the Cavs, we have them losing. It's amazing that throughout all the crap that we done heard about them this season, that they still able to get to the finals. That's still amazing with a first year construction, like you said. The problems in the locker room with Kevin Love, supposedly a coach who people say he can't really coach. LeBron is coaching the team and all that. And if they're still able to make it to the finals, then what is that saying about the rest of the league?
Yeah. And two, for me personally, just being a LeBron fan, that's another reason why I love the guy. I mean, there's very few other players, I think, that could handle and just lead the team through this situation. That's why, for me personally, he's the best leader in the NBA, and this is just another reason why. We're going to go ahead and take our first break. We've been talking for about 40 minutes straight here. We need a quick break. We're still going to be talking some more NBA on the other side of this break. We got MVP talk, as well as the rest of the awards, and kind of our final thoughts from the regular season. And some, I guess, other thing. We already made our predictions, but some other things we're looking forward to in the playoffs. It's me and Darius right here coming at you live at C2 Sports, I guess, today, right here on 88.3 The Dog.
This is a test to find out if you know it all when it comes to children. Time starts now. Name one of the leading killers of U.S. children age 1 to 13. What's the best way to protect children in a car crash? At what age and size should a child start using a booster seat? Where can you find the answers to these questions?
Car crashes are one of the leading killers of U.S. children. Many of those deaths could be prevented by making sure that kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Don't assume you know it all when it comes to car seats for your child. Go to safercar.gov/the-right-seat and know for sure. That's safercar.gov/the-right-seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hey America, we are your pets, and this song's dedicated to those people who don't have health insurance yet.
Enroll, we say,
We want you to be okay. Enroll, we say, take care of people for goodness sake.
there's a plan for every budget, so don't accept defeat. Now you can get covered and still buy me treats.
Enroll!
So listen to me, a talking pug, you see. If you get health insurance, preventive care is now free.
So sweet.
You take care of your pets. Now it's their turn to take care of you. Visit getcoveredamerica.org to learn about your health insurance options. That's getcoveredamerica.org.
And take care, people!
Brought to you by Get Covered America and the Ad Council.
Chris, can you put the video game controller down for a second?
I can talk and play. Oh, I'm totally annihilating this punk kid in Nebraska.
I just feel like you're not acting like a grown-up in our relationship.
Am too.
Well, you still ride your skateboard to work, there's the comic book collection, the race car bed.
Look, I'm young at heart, but I put money into my 401k every paycheck. I picked up a few savings tips at feedthepig.org. I have control over my financial life now, and that feels pretty grown up.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1,000,000. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. For free ideas and easy tips on ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
So, I bet I look like a grown-up to you now.
Well, except for the footy pajamas, I'd have to agree.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to C4 Sports, well, C2 Sports today, right here on 88.3 The Dog. I'm Matt Langman at LmanMatt93, right here in the studio with the Hawk himself, Darius Hawkins.
Absolutely, at the _Hawk_13.
Go ahead and tweet us any sports questions to either of us, and we will answer them live on air, give you a shout-out. But right now, we're going to go ahead and talk about some more NBA basketball. This time, who is the MVP, kind of the most prestigious award in the league? It is kind of the most individual team sport in a way, so I think this MVP means a little bit more than pretty much any other sport. And right now, according to NBA.com, the NBA MVP race is this. 1, Stephen Curry, a little surprised to see that. 2, James Harden. Number 3 is my boy LeBron. 4, Chris Paul. 5 is Westbrook, and you have to think the only reason he's at 5 is because they did not make the playoffs.
Absolutely.
6, LaMarcus Aldridge. 7, Paul Millsap. I mean, these guys really don't matter at this point. But 8, Marc Gasol. 9, Anthony Davis. A little surprised he's only at 9. And 10 is Tim Duncan, who we were just talking about as a finals MVP for this season. What do you think about the ratings that NBA.com has right here that I just listed, and what are your personal rankings?
Well, the ratings at NBA.com, they can just throw that crap in the garbage. Okay, I don't know. Russell Westbrook should not be any lower than 3, first of all. That's just what it is. Personally, one thing I've said is, first of all, let me just start with this. Russell Westbrook, to me, has been the best player basically this season. I know he's missed some games, but definitely for the second half of the season, he's done something that almost seems historic. But because of their low seeding and you know, they were low seeding and not making the playoffs, but if they did, they were only going to be an 8 seed. I knew he wouldn't win the MVP. Personally, to me, I feel like James Harden should win it. They got the 2nd seed, which, I mean, usually if you look at history, you need like a top 2 seed. And he's basically playing what we talked about earlier with a lot of injuries. Dwight Howard has missed, I think, around 50 games this year. Terrence Jones, the same. Patrick Beverley has been out for a little while now. So, I mean, they've been struggling with injuries, and Harden has basically taken over, you know, the whole thing. He's 2nd in the league in scoring, and he's leading the team, I believe, also in steals and assists, I believe. He's leading the team in both of those categories. So, just that alone, he's averaging career highs and everything. He basically took the responsibility that Houston put on his shoulders, and he excelled everything they expected. After that, I'll have Steph Curry being number 2. And if he wins, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be upset with it. I understand why they won 60-plus games this year. But I feel like the team that he has around him is, you know, it's easier for them to, you know, to do that. He has Klay Thompson, his backcourt mate, who's averaging over 21 points a game. So having 2 20-point guys, you got a guy in Draymond Green who I've heard some people trying to vote for a Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you can also put him in the Most Improved category. Then you have 2 former All-Stars, Andre Iguodala and David Lee, coming off the bench. So they have a nice full team.
Yeah.
Nobody really expected Houston, at least I believe, to get, you know, a number 2 seed, especially when you add all the injuries. So to me, I definitely had James Harden being this year's MVP.
Okay, I can understand that. For me, honestly, this is really, really difficult because I've always been the NBA's MVP for me should be who was the best player in the NBA this season. And despite missing some time with injury, I don't really think there's any question that it was Russell Westbrook. Like you said, what he did was historic. I've honestly never seen a player put the team on his back the way that Russell Westbrook did this season and almost single-handedly drag his team into the playoffs. If he's in the Eastern Conference, I'm pretty sure the Thunder are in the playoffs.
Yeah.
In this very difficult Western Conference. So that's why I feel like I should give it to Westbrook, and I really, really want to. The only thing holding me back is that they did not make the playoffs, and it's just almost impossible to give it to a player whose team was not in the playoffs. But at the same time, I'm going against myself by saying the best player in the NBA for me was clearly Russell Westbrook this season, should win the MVP. So I haven't fully decided. Honestly, I would go, call me a homer, but I would go with LeBron James at 2. I think he's been more consistent than the other guys. I think Curry a little bit overrated, like you said, with his team success. Really, I'm really split between Harden and LeBron. I think I got the numbers pulled up right here for those two. It's one of those two I'd give it to, if not Russell Westbrook. LeBron at 25 points per game, 6 rebounds, 8 assists per game, whereas Harden was at the 27 points, 5 rebounds and 7 assists. So that's really, really even for both of them. And it's tough, man. It's real tough. I'm split between. If I could give it to both of them, I would.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I would go LeBron, but I don't have a problem with James Harden as well. If I could give it to both of them, I would. Man.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel. I wonder how LeBron is going to end up in the voting. Cleveland has been good as far as East-wise, but I think the West has definitely dominated, mostly everything. So, I mean, it's definitely interesting. Like I said, I know it's going to end up either being Steph or Harden. So, the real intrigue for me is not only which one of those wins, but how close is Russell Westbrook as far as in voting.
Yeah.
Just because, like we said, personally, for us, he definitely deserves the MVP, but we know he's not going to get it. So, but it's nice to see that because, it's, either way it's going to most likely be somebody new. And like we talked about with the title, even though we didn't pick anybody necessarily new to be in the finals, it's nice to have, a little bit of difference go up in the NBA.
Yeah, I could understand that too. It's been fun to watch. It's been an interesting season to kind of keep a hand on the pulse, a finger on the pulse, if you will. It has been kind of a season of change, you could say that, for the NBA. We've seen some new players, some new teams kind of step up this season. I think you're right. We will probably see a new MVP. I think the official MVP is going to go to Steph Curry. I think that's who kind of the media has been pushing. The NBA itself has been kind of pushing him a little bit, just alone from the rankings I just read off. I think he's going to win the official one, which I really don't like that much. I do feel he was a bit overrated. Granted, he was a terrific player, especially offensively this season. It was pretty impressive. But like you said, he's got the best team around him out of all the other candidates. Yeah. And I think people are focusing more on the team success than the individual as well, when the MVP should be an individual award.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, he like you said, he's had an impressive season, so that's not really nothing to say, nothing negative towards him. But it's just that James Harden had to do more with less, and apparently he was able to do more. But I mean, it's going to be interesting either way. It's a good season, a lot of great individual performances. So it's nice that, guys are coming out here and they're playing hard every night. Because, I mean, one thing that there was a lot of criticism you remember about James Harden last year, that, he's not playing defense. And when the time came for playoffs, which is still yet to be proven this year, he didn't play well at all. But it seemed like he really worked on that this offseason. And, of course, he couldn't foresee all the injuries that was coming to his team. But even with that, he was able to excel and, put his game on a higher level than what it even was before. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just good to see. And then the same thing with Westbrook. When we saw Westbrook hurt last year, Kevin Durant took over, and people was like, oh, so how's Westbrook going to fit? Well, Kevin Durant gets hurt, and Westbrook is doing stuff that Kevin Durant wasn't doing. Each player last year had a historic season. We remember KD last year had like the 30 points per 30, scoring 30 a game for like 30 consecutive games or something like that. And now Russ has basically 2 months where he's averaging triple doubles. So I mean, it's just, I mean, it's crazy things going on in the NBA, and it's going to be real interesting next year to see how those two actually do coexist, when hopefully both of them are healthy.
Not to put you on the spot too much, but do you see Durant leaving for, I guess, Washington?
I definitely could understand why he would do it. Personally, I probably would, especially if they don't make a move coaching-wise. I know that there's some talk that maybe Scott Brooks might be a little. There's no guarantee that he's going to come back. I know he said that he sees himself as the coach next year. Personally, y'all, if you listen to me, anybody out there, y'all know I can't stand Scott Brooks. I think he's a horrible coach. They definitely should fire him. But I feel like if they, and I know Kevin Durant actually is a fan of Scott Brooks being the coach.
Really?
So, I mean, I don't really know, how they're going to maneuver that decision. But I don't know. If I was him, I probably would. I mean, you don't want to leave a guy like Westbrook, and I know that excites him to see Westbrook playing like that, so he wants to see how they coexist together. But in the long term, it might just be a better situation with the Wizards. But it doesn't help that the Wizards seem to, be a disappointment the last 2 years. So I don't really know which one he would end up doing. I think it's kind of 50-50 right now, because I can definitely see the pros and cons of staying as well as leaving.
Okay. I just thought that was interesting, because right now I honestly think he might actually leave for the Wizards. That's kind of how I'm feeling now. Especially, I think Oklahoma City, I don't want to say they want him out, but I think they might actually trade him, possibly at some point. If Westbrook continues to play like this and he can kind of lead the team by himself, they might try and get, because they're not a deep team at all.
Yeah,
That's really the biggest weakness they have is their depth. They almost have only a 6-man rotation really out there in Oklahoma City. So you could trade Durant, like the best player in the NBA, arguably the last year's MVP. You could get a lot in return for that, a lot of depth right there, and possibly go deeper in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, possibly, trading the big guy that they add more. Sometimes it may seem like you're trading more for less, but it might be, you're actually trading one guy to try and boost your team. And that's actually what you got to do sometimes. It ends up working when some teams do that. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what their management does. I mean, and it's going to be intriguing because they're going to have a top, 15 pick this year. And this draft is actually pretty deep. So, and with a team like them who has a history of drafting well, it's going to be real interesting what their offseason is. I think that they might actually have the most intriguing offseason this year.
You think so?
Yeah, because, as far as Cleveland, LeBron, I don't think he's going to opt out this year to leave and walk away. So, besides that, I think OKC, with the players they have, just trying to build that team because neither one of them can actually leave this summer. But as far as Westbrook and Durant, but just building around them. Because, I think in 2 years, Westbrook's deal is up. So, let's just say Durant leaves, and then the whole team just goes, just fails that you might see Westbrook leaving. You don't want to have a team where you lose both of them when you could have won with both of them. So, it's going to be real interesting to see what they do this summer.
I shifted focus now to the other awards that are handed out at the end of the NBA season. Who do you have for Defensive Player of the Year right now?
Yesterday, I was saying DeAndre Jordan. But it's kind of tough. I've been seeing for some reason, and maybe I'm missing something, but a lot of people have been saying Draymond Green. I don't really know where that's coming from. I know Kawhi Leonard led the league in steals this year, but he also missed a good amount of games to me. So I personally would probably go with DeAndre Jordan. I know he definitely deserves some type of acknowledgement just for what he's doing with the Clippers. The Clippers aren't necessarily a great defensive team.
Yeah.
But, he's leading the league in rebounds and blocks and stuff like that. So I feel like it probably should go to him, but I can't really be upset if they give it to Kawhi Leonard. I like how Kawhi Leonard plays, so I wouldn't necessarily be upset with that. But I don't think it's really a clear-cut favorite this year. I don't really know who it should go to personally.
Okay. For me, I was just going to stick with the obvious one, which was DeAndre Jordan. I think he's kind of the front runner right now. And I don't think I've seen too much of the rest of the league to really kind of give it to somebody else. Hearing Draymond Green's name is a little bit of a new thing for me.
I keep hearing that around just from Chris Broussard, and I think David Aldridge said the same thing. And I don't know, maybe I've been missing something. I don't know what it is.
But yeah, I guess if I had to choose anybody, it would be DeAndre this year. So that's our Defensive Player of the Year pick right now. What about Most Improved Player?
I definitely got to go with Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
I know he is not as the same level as it was like the first few months of the season, but his improvement just overall was great. At number 2 in that, I probably would then have Draymond Green. Number 2, I think Draymond Green definitely had a very productive year, but I got to go with Jimmy Butler. I think he has to be the clear-cut favorite for this.
Yeah.
For Most Improved.
I agree. Jimmy Butler. You can call me a homer once again, being a Bulls fan, Chicago kid. But, yeah, Jimmy Butler's been pretty crazy this season, really carrying the team with, once again, Derrick Rose going down with multiple injuries, missing a ton of time. And really, when he was healthy, he was not himself at all. Really didn't play well this season at all, did Derrick Rose. So I think you got to go Jimmy Butler right there. So go ahead and call me a homer. Coach of the Year, who you got?
I'm going with Mike Budenholzer from the Atlanta Hawks.
Okay.
Now, I know a lot of people are saying Steve Kerr, but there's 2 reasons I'm not going to go with Steve Kerr. First of it is the Atlanta Hawks. Nobody would have had the Hawks winning 60-some games. So that's for one. And they didn't really make any big roster moves. I know Al Horford was healthy this year. Kyle Korver shot almost 50% from 3, which is just crazy. But they didn't make necessarily any big moves. Golden State didn't make big moves either besides coaching. But if we remember last year, going into last season, I picked Golden State to go to the finals. So I thought that their team was already good, and they just, underachieved a little last year. And then I remember Andre Iguodala got hurt last season. They started off high, and then they kind of tapered off. Then they fired Mark Jackson, and then you get Steve Kerr, who has proven to be obviously the better choice for coach. At the time, I thought that was kind of crazy, but it's obviously worked out. But I think Golden State already had a lot of talent there, and this is just another year of that talent being together. I think if Mark Jackson was there, they would still have the potential to win the same amount of games. I just think the team just got, better just playing together.
Yeah.
Atlanta, they just came totally out of nowhere, and the only reason I can think of that might be the coaching.
Yeah.
So I got to go with Budenholzer from Atlanta.
I really couldn't have said it any better. I'm going to go with Atlanta as well right there, I guess, to play devil's advocate because people don't want to hear us just agree the whole time. Maybe even, I think Kevin McHale, he's the coach in Houston, am I correct? Possibly him getting the Rockets up to a 2 seed in the very competitive Western Conference. what he's done, especially taking players like a Dwight Howard or even Josh Smith, who's really been kind of a coach killer in a way, like a team killer throughout his career. He's really kind of produced well, maybe not as well as he should have, but definitely better. He hasn't killed the team. He's only helped them since he's got there.
Exactly.
And so I think that's why I could probably make a case, too, for Kevin McHale out of Houston. But at the end of the day, I couldn't have said it any better than you did right there. And I think that Rookie of the Year then?
Yeah, I got to go with Andrew Wiggins. Personally, I feel like a guy. He's not gonna be able to win an award. Well, no, he might because we still got to do 6-man. But I just want to give a shout out to Nikola Mirotic for the Bulls. I feel like he's surpassed everything. We didn't really know for sure what he was going to be. There was still a kind of question because he had waited so long overseas. But when Taj Gibson was hurt, they put Mirotic in the starting lineup. He was balling out. When he's on the bench, when Dunleavy was hurt, he was the 6-man coming off the bench. He was balling out. Every time, no matter what situation he's in, he seems to play well. And so I think Wiggins is going to win it just because of the scoring average. I think he finished with like 17 points per game. But Mirotic, I definitely think is a great piece for the Bulls to have for the future. So he's not. I don't have him winning it, but he should definitely be second in the votes.
Okay. That's interesting. I was just going to go with Wiggins as well and give Mirotic the 6th man of the year. But yeah, that's kind of an interesting case that you make. I didn't really think of it that way, especially when you came to Rookie of the Year talk as well. But yeah, Mirotic, I think he had an up and down season. There were times where he frustrated me as a Bulls fan as well. Kind of his shooting sometimes was a little spotty, and I don't think he's necessarily the best decision maker with the ball in his hands. But he was a lot of fun to watch. He's kind of that stereotypical European big man in a way that stretch kind of 4, even a 3. And he's hit some big shots for the Bulls this season, definitely. Anybody else you got that could be a 6th man of the year?
No, I'll probably go with Mirotic. I don't know if he's gonna win it. I keep hearing Lou Williams from Toronto. I figure he'll win it. I know just on his history that he's a productive guy, and I don't know really what he's doing behind Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, but he'll probably end up winning it. But yeah, just to second what you said on Mirotic. Definitely, I think with years of development, he'll be even better. But, one thing about Tibbs, if we know Tom Thibodeau, he usually has the history of not playing rookies. And he kind of had to change that up this year. Mirotic, I agree with you. He's not the best with shot selection. Sometimes and making decisions. Sometimes he gets a little shot happy. And defensively, he just doesn't really exist at all. But I think that's going to improve with time. But he adds a piece to the Bulls that the Bulls usually don't have. They usually don't have that flamboyant guy who's going to come out and score. Well, they had it in Nate Robinson, but then he was on a 1-year deal, and that was kind of a result of Derrick Rose being hurt. But Mirotic is definitely a guy who, Bulls fans should and Tibbs himself should definitely see how they can fit into the rotation and see how he can get proper minutes because he's a big piece that could help them during this postseason.
It's kind of some interesting points. I have been excited to see Mirotic, how he plays in the playoffs with the pressure's on. Can he make those big shots? The Bulls, I think, with Derrick Rose not being himself, being injured, need a guy. Jimmy Butler still coming off kind of an injury. Do they have a guy who can hit a big shot if it's not Rose or Butler? I think Mirotic might be that guy that can step up and hit a big shot.
Absolutely.
Kind of final thoughts from the NBA season. It's going to kind of wrap up at least regular season NBA talk for C4 Sports.
I just want to give a shout out to my homie Russell Westbrook. Great season for you. Damian Lillard, you were consistent. I agree with you, Matt. He definitely could have made a bigger jump. There are some areas that I don't really like where he improved in some games. His shooting didn't show up the way that I believe that it should have. But overall, I got to say it's been a great season. A lot of surprises so far. The West is totally different than how I would have saw it. Atlanta, I'm very interested to see how they play in the playoffs just because they won 60-some games, which is amazing. So, it's just great overall. I hope that the playoffs everybody's healthy.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Derrick Rose get another injury. I hope everybody is able to be productive. And hopefully these series live up and actually even, exceed expectations for what we have for them.
All right, so there you have it, the wrap-up of the NBA regular season here on C4 Sports. The next time you hear us, it'll be some playoff basketball. We got one more break to take. We're going to talk some NHL for a little bit, and after that, it was an exciting night last night, first night of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Both of us were able to see some of that action, and we're going to talk that. We're going to cut the show early this week since it is only two of us. But if you do want to hear some Stanley Cup playoff talk, keep it right here on 88.3 The Dog.
Dear John, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this, but you've left me no choice. I'm leaving. Uncontrolled high blood pressure is really serious, and lately you seem to really not care. I've been there for you since day one, and I know you think I'm gonna keep ticking. But no, my friend, I can quit whenever I want. Why can't we get back to the good times, when we were more active and ate more healthy foods, and you checked on me every once in a while? Is that too much to ask? I don't want to leave, but unless you stop ignoring me, what else am I supposed to do? Remember, when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you. Doing the minimum to control your high blood pressure isn't doing enough. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get your blood pressure to a healthy range before it's too late. Find out how at heart.org/bloodpressure. Check, change, control. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Today, you brushed your teeth. You skipped the floss. You combed your hair. You took the train. You did the crossword. You missed 22 across. You went to work. You had a meeting. You ate your lunch. You had another meeting. You wondered, how is anyone supposed to get any work done around here with so many meetings? You left the office. You took the train. You ate your dinner. You brushed your teeth. You did all the things that one normally does the day before a brutal EF5 tornado rips through town, leaving 30,000 people without power. You never know when the day before is the day before. Prepare for tomorrow at ready.gov/today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck as a gift to Dave 2037, so he can spend it on things like anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman, something cool like that. I think Dave 2037 deserves it. He worked hard. What are you getting Steve 2037?
I guess I was thinking Steve 2037 would just fend for himself.
Well, all right, but don't expect to be borrowing my anti-gravity boots.
You want to have money in your future? You got to start saving now. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Hey, let's just hope Steve 2037 doesn't get his hands on a cold time machine, because he is going to come back here and knock some sense into you.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to C4 Sports C2 today, right here on 88.3 The Dog. Thank you to all of you listening. We're going to wrap the show up early today, but not before we get some Stanley Cup playoff talking. And this is what I've been waiting for. This is Christmas for me. I've really only been paying attention primarily to just hockey this season. So let's go ahead and recap the action from last night. The Islanders were able to take down Washington at home in Game 1. That was a score of 4-1, I believe, right there at the Verizon Center. Montreal, the only home team to win last night, was able to pick up a 4-3 victory over Ottawa with PK Subban getting kicked out. Some controversy there. They're up 1-0 on the Sens. Vancouver dropped Game 1 to Calgary 2-1 last night at home. And the Hawks, of course, a double overtime thriller that almost made me throw up watching that last night. Or it was the Buffalo Wild Wings, one of the two. But double overtime, Duncan Keith scores to give the Hawks a 4-3 victory. And we'll go ahead and start with the Blackhawks. I know that's the game that you watched. Obviously, I watched about every second of that game. And that was a crazy game. I don't like the way the Hawks played, even though they got the win. Don't like it at all. They lost 4 straight coming into the playoffs, which they looked terrible coming into the playoffs, and they looked terrible in the first period. Excuse me about that. And Crawford gets pulled to end the first. Here comes a Lamont native from the Chicagoland area, Scott Darling, who plays out of his mind. He played second period on, had 42 saves, gave up 0 goals. The Hawks came into the second period down 3-0, came out of the second period, tied up 3-3, 2 power play goals. Patrick Kane, his first game back in 7 weeks, picks up 2 assists right there. Loved the heart from the Hawks in the second period, but then about midway through the third, Nashville gets a power play, and they kind of take all the momentum from that. The only reason the Hawks were able to even get it to overtime was about 3 or 4 just spectacular saves by Scott Darling. 2 of them I know made the top 10 for SportsCenter today. And Darling just drags them into the overtime. Some good chances for both teams after the initial rush by Nashville to start overtime. And in the second overtime period, it's just the Hawks winning a board battle, which they've kind of struggled to do all season long. And Duncan Keith takes a shot from the point. It's kind of what they call a seeing eye puck, where the puck is able to just find its way through all the traffic and into the back of the net somehow. A nice screen from Jonathan Taves didn't allow Predators goalie Pekka Rinne, one of the best in the league, to see the puck, beats him glove side, and the Blackhawks steal Game 1 from Nashville in Nashville. And kind of something I don't know if you've heard, which is interesting. I know you know, obviously, me being a Hawks fan, that the Hawks are, I mean, you could say it's arrogant, but I think it's kind of a fact, one of the best fan bases in the NHL, travel better than basically anybody. What the Predators have done they've had since 2012 this thing called Keep the Red Out, where they try and do all these crazy things with ticket selling to specifically Blackhawks games to try and keep all the Hawks fans out because they get embarrassed that you see all the red in Nashville. There have been times where the Hawks fans outnumber Nashville fans in Nashville. And before, it used to be you had to buy, if you want to go to a Hawks game, you had to buy a ticket to another game. So obviously, if you're a Hawks fan, like, why would I buy a game when they play the Islanders or somebody, So it's kind of to try and keep Chicago out. But now they're not allowing credit cards that come from a Chicago area code to purchase tickets for their games. And plus, the thing that the Hawks do, I don't know if you know, the tradition is during the national anthem at the United Center, during the Blackhawks games, you cheer during the national anthem. And when Hawks fans go on the road, they kind of do the same thing. And Nashville doesn't like that. Once again, you can hear all the Hawks fans in the arena during the national anthem. So they do not have a singer now for Nashville in the playoffs, at least when they're playing the Blackhawks. The crowd is supposed to sing the national anthem itself, so trying to drown out the Hawks fans.
Yeah.
TV play-by-play announcer Pat Foley last night made an interesting point that it's Music City and they couldn't find artists to sing the national anthem, which was kind of funny. But still, regardless of all that, the Hawks were able to steal a victory last night in double OT. Duncan Keith scored the game winner, but despite all that, I did not like still what I saw from the team, other than the second period and first half of the third period. I think the Hawks got thoroughly outplayed. It was thanks to some great goaltending by Scott Darling and a good second period where they were able to come back from 3 down and tie it up. I mean, I know you could say that this is the type of game that, championship teams need to win. You win games you aren't supposed to win, but still, just what I'm saying is, coming into the playoffs, the Hawks looked bad. They had that month stretch where they looked real bad before Patrick Kane got hurt and they started to turn something around. But I don't know. This was the matchup I wanted for the Blackhawks, was Nashville. I wanted them to avoid definitely Winnipeg and St. Louis, but I would still rather play the Predators than the Wild up in Minnesota. And I still don't like the way they just kind of got out-hustled and outworked by Nashville. And I don't know. I was talking about it with my friends and my family. And just everything I've seen, even in the regular season, what I saw last night, it doesn't look like the Hawks want it enough at points. Like, they don't win board battles. Why we got eliminated by the Kings in the conference finals last year is because really it comes down to one thing: we couldn't win a face-off despite having guys like Taves and Richards and Teravainen, who are great face-off men. They apparently lose face-offs in the playoffs. I know we got dominated in the face-off circle last night again to a Nashville team that didn't have Mike Fisher for every period after the first. He left the first period with an injury. And so, I mean, after that, there's no reason the Hawks should be dominated in the face-off circle by this Predators team, and that's really the reason why we lost to LA. If you want to go back to one reason, it's the face-off circle from last year. So it's still a little disappointing to see that, and I just expected more fire, more jump from the Hawks. I don't know what you saw from watching that game. Just a quick wrap-up, because I know you saw at least the first two periods, so you saw the good and the bad.
Yeah, I saw the first two, and I saw the third also. I don't think I saw the overtimes, but one thing, just from afar, because of course, what I recognize is the names, the names of the. So I understand, or I comprehend. Like when I hear Crawford, I'm like, okay, he's one of the good players on the team. So when I heard they're pulling Crawford, I was like, what the heck is going on here? And I saw they were down 3-0. So of course, even without knowing hockey, I know there's still time left on the first period. So, but I was impressed to see that they came back. And they were able to get the win. So, I mean, Nashville, instead of focusing on Blackhawks fans, they might want to focus on their own team. But with you being a fan and knowing everything that's going on, I would want to ask you, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you, so are you more upset? Like, how do you judge this game? Are you more happy that your team was able to pull out a victory in a game that y'all didn't play well? Or is this more of a sign that the team is struggling and we just lucked up and got a win?
It's a little bit of both, I'd say. I think the Hawks kind of dug down deep. They didn't play terrible in the overtimes, but they played some solid defense. They really Nashville likes to get their defensemen involved in the play, and really until the overtimes, they kind of. I don't think the defensemen had one shot in regulation for the Predators, but I'd say both. I'd say more negative than positive because they really didn't play well. And they have not. It goes back to they have not, like you said, they've limped into the playoffs, which is never a good thing. They're not they're a cold team coming into the playoffs. It really, really worries me. And I didn't really see that much improvement. I just saw the Hawks have always been a team. They're the Spurs of the NHL. You could say that. Like, they know when they need to win, and I think they've struggled for motivation last year and this year. And that's just what I see this year, which shouldn't be after the way they lost to LA. But they've just kind of struggled. That's the only thing I can think of, because like I mean, they're not a physical team, but like they get pushed around a lot. They lose a ton of board battles. They lose a ton of 50-50 pucks in the neutral zone. And just they can't win the faceoffs, which should not happen. They're probably the best team in the NHL at winning faceoffs. At least they should be. And I would say more negative by the way they played. I just expected they would be ready for the playoffs, and they really didn't seem that way. They kind of had to, go, oh, snap, we got to win this game. We got to wake up, and that's kind of what they did. They have the talent and the experience to do that. They say nothing surprises this Blackhawks team anymore. We've seen it all. I mean, they've come down from 3-1 to beat Detroit the year we won the Cup in 2013.
Yeah.
They almost came back from 3-0 down in 2011 when we were a shell of ourselves. We won in 2010, lost a ton of our players coming into 2011. We were the 8th seed playing a much better Vancouver Canucks team. They went up 3-0. We almost came back to, we tied it 3-3 in the series, almost won Game 7. We forced overtime. I still remember watching that game. Taves scored shorthanded with 10 seconds left to force overtime in Game 7. I remember leaping into my brother's arms when that happened, and we lost in overtime in that game in Vancouver. So this team has seen it all. I think that's kind of what got them through last night. But I am more worried with how badly they played than I am happy. Like, obviously, it's good to see. Like, this is a huge game. I think it's demoralizing for Nashville to lose that game because they outplayed us. It went 2 over. It's always hard to lose a 2 overtime. I think it's harder to lose than it is exhilarating to win when it goes deep overtimes like that, because we saw that in the Stanley Cup Finals with the Hawks in 2013. They won a triple overtime game 1 against Boston that year. Shaw scored on a redirect. And that was just, I think, more demoralizing to the Bruins than it was to the Hawks. And I think that's kind of the case in this one, especially when you outplay the Hawks the way Nashville did. But yeah, I'd say I'm pretty worried headed into Game 2, definitely. I mean, I'll be happy with this split. Say Nashville wins tomorrow night and it's 1-1 headed to Chicago. I guess I'll take that. We got one in the road, but I think it was a big win, a big character win, and it was a steal for the Hawks. So I think they can't. It won't happen again. We'll say that. That's what Quinville said, the coach for the Hawks. He's like, we're happy to get this one. This was a huge win for us. Really got to credit the team for coming together, but we can't expect to come back from 3-0 down again.
Okay.
So that's kind of to answer your question right there. But yeah, I guess with the Hawks, I was kind of just disappointed overall with how they played. I'm interested to see how they come out Friday night. I guess to kind of end the show, we'll just go ahead and I'll give my thoughts on the other series right here. New York Islanders, I had, at least for my predictions, I guess, for what I had for the playoffs. Too bad Ryan's not here because I got his Blues going very far. I know he'd be happy to hear that. St. Louis, Minnesota, I got St. Louis in 6 over the Wild. A competitive series. I feel like the Wild match up real well with them. 2 fast, physical teams. But St. Louis is on a roll. They got the talent. And it all depends on... St. Louis is going as far as Brian Elliott and Jake Allen take them in net. And I think they have the talent and the experience to get past Minnesota in the first round in 6 games. Hawks and Preds. Hawks up 1-0. I had the Hawks winning in 6 games anyway. And that one, Anaheim and Winnipeg. Winnipeg, a wild card team that really gave a lot of teams trouble, including the Blackhawks. I got them going 7 games with Anaheim, but the Ducks, I think Corey Perry, Getzlaf, just too much talent there for Anaheim. Despite their past struggles in the playoffs, I got the Ducks in 7. Vancouver and Calgary, probably the least interesting matchup of these entire playoffs. Vancouver dropped Game 1 last night, but I still have them beating the Flames in 6. That's what I had coming into it. I'm going to stick with that. In the Eastern Conference, we have the Habs, the Montreal Canadiens, up 1-0 on Ottawa. I had the Habs in 5 in that series. Tampa Bay and Detroit, a very interesting matchup right there. You can never sleep on Detroit either in the playoffs. They've made the playoffs, I think, 20-some straight years now, have the Red Wings. I got the Lightning, though. Stamkos is too hot. Ben Bishop in net has had a heck of a year. He's got my favorite mask in the NHL. It glows in the dark. It's pretty cool. So I got Tampa Bay winning that one in 7. A very good and competitive 7-game series is going on in that one. At least that's what I predict. Then we have the Rangers and the Penguins, which is another interesting matchup. On paper, this looks like a great matchup, fun to watch on TV, but the Penguins are banged up, and they've struggled in the playoffs ever since they won the Cup in 2009. That's why I got to go with New York in 6 games, last year's Eastern Conference champ, the Rangers. I think they take care of the Penguins in 6. Then the Caps and the Islanders is another very tough one to pick. These are 2 teams I like a lot. 2 teams that have that I picked to be surprise teams, at least breakout teams, and they proved me right this season.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks to both of them. I'm going to go ahead. The Islanders are up 1-0. I had the Caps winning in 7. I'm going to go ahead and stick with that one. Then my conference finals, I believe I had the Blues and Ducks. That means I have the St. Louis Blues, my least favorite team in the NHL. I cannot stand the Blues or their fans at all, and I'm not ashamed to say that. But I have them beating the Hawks in 7 games in that second-round matchup. So I have the Blues and Ducks in the Western Conference. I have the Blues taking care of the Ducks. I think they're too physical, too deep, for Anaheim. And I have the Blues winning the Western Conference in 6 games against the Ducks. Then I have a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Final, the Montreal Canadiens and New York Rangers. The Rangers won it last year. I think the Habs get it this year. I got the Habs in a very exciting 7-game series over there in the East Final. But the Canadiens are going to be your Eastern Conference champ. In the Stanley Cup Final, the Habs and the Blues. I got Montreal in 6 games. Sorry, my St. Louis friends and fans who are listening. I don't think you guys are quite ready to win the Stanley Cup. The goaltending, if there's one reason why it's the goaltending, I don't think Brian Elliott and Jake Allen are good enough to go all the way and win a Stanley Cup, especially when you're going up against my Vezina Trophy winner and MVP, Carey Price, in net for the Canadiens. I know he had a rocky start last night, but so did a lot of guys. This guy, you can make the case he's the best goalie in the NHL right now. Combine that with the power, the two-way powerhouses like Plekanec, Pacioretty, my boy PK Subban, Markov, guys like that. I just think the Canadiens match up well. They're a better version of the Blues, if only because they have Carey Price in net. So I got the Habs in 6 in the Stanley Cup Final, and that means for the first time since the year I was born, 1993, the Stanley Cup will be going to a team that is located north of the border in Canada. So yeah, that's kind of what I got. PK Subban, the only thing I really have, not suspended for that big slash last night against the Ottawa. He only got that 5-minute major in game misconduct, so he got kicked out. And right now, the game that's going on is the Rangers and Penguins. Rangers have a 1-0 lead early in the first period, so not the start the Penguins wanted. And yeah, I'm very excited. This is Christmas time for me. Not only do I have my Stanley Cup playoffs on, which is what I'm going to be primarily keeping an eye on, but when hockey's not going on, I got some very good matchups over there in the NBA playoffs.
Absolutely. Like you said, it's Christmas season for us all.
Yeah.
Santa must be in the building.
So that's going to go ahead. We're going to wrap it up early. That's all the time we got for C4 Sports. It was C2 Sports today. Hopefully you guys liked what you heard. We're on every Thursday. At least every Thursday we can get enough people in the studio or not kicked off for some Western Illinois sporting event. Every Thursday, 5 to 7 for the rest of the semester. Once again, I'm Matt Langman at LmanMatt93 on the Twitterverse.
And I am Darius Hawkins at _Hawk_13 on Twitter and Instagram.
All right. You've been listening to C4 Sports right here on 88.3 The Dog.
Okay, forest animals, today is a new day. Kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow.
Yes?
Have you practiced the most